Hey, good evening, everyone, and good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are. And thank you to the Alumni Society for inviting me to speak on this panel. And thank you to the amazing speakers that have already come and to the ones that will come afterwards. And thank you all for your time to listen to me for the next 10 minutes. I'd like to set the setting, starting out with Thomas Friedman's book. I'm sure some of you may have read it. Thank you for being late. And in that book, Mr. Friedman argues that we as humans, we've become adaptable creatures. We've been able to rise to the pinnacle of evolution, at the top of the food chain, to be able to survive and to exceed. However, now is a time of ever evolution within the areas of technology. The speed of evolution within technology is really hard for people to keep up with. Think about it as, for example, from Moore's Law. It's a very good example. Moore's Law, as some of you might know, is this concept that processing speed doubles every 2 years, roughly. Imagine if you applied that as a case study to another piece of technology. Let's say you took a 1971 Volkswagen Beetle and you bought it fresh, brand new, right? Back in 71. But now, if that Beetle, that piece of technology had followed Moore's Law, well, that same car would cost you today around 4 cents. That car could survive on one gas tank for the entire life of when you owned it. And that car could go up to 300,000 miles per hour. See, that's the thing that's going on with technology. It's evolving at a rate so fast that even our own natural evolution can't keep up with it. This is why individuals, governments, corporations, everyone's playing catch up. Everyone's always trying to stay up with the latest lingo of blockchain or what exactly is a xenobot or biomechatronics. And high functioning professionals are having the same thing. That's why so many are struggling with issues like burnout, because they've never been able to adapt to this level of change. Municipalities are having the same thing. They're struggling with dealing with autonomous vehicles, ride hailing, or applications such as those self-charging scooters, which appear to replicate overnight instantaneously. Corporations are trying to figure out now, all right, what's our artificial intelligence strategy? When 2 years ago they couldn't even figure out how to reboot their computers, it seemed. So how does a country, how does a company, how does a group of people, how do we as individuals, as humans, how do we manage to keep up with that rate of innovation? How do we remain innovative? Can we keep up? And if so, how? Well, to look at how the future is going, we have to go back and look at the past. At the time when there was an equal amount of great innovation, the Renaissance, and there's something that we can learn from one of the greatest innovators ever to be here, Leonardo da Vinci. Now, over the centuries, there's been a lot that's been written about the master, but there's still a lot that we can learn. See, Leonardo lived in a time that was very similar to our own, a time of great change, technologically, artistically, politically. In those days, people were always talking about people like Leonardo, Columbus, Gutenberg. Now we mention folks like Jobs, Musk, and Bezos. He could have been considered kind of the father of the gig economy. I mean, if you asked right now 100 people, if we took a survey of everyone that was listening and said, what did Leonardo do? What was he known for? Most people would probably say that, well, he was an amazing artist. The thing is that if you ask Leonardo himself, that's probably not what he would answer. See, Leonardo had a very different perspective on who he was. And that's one of the first lessons we can learn from him of how to remain resilient and innovative. He was equal parts an engineer, a mechanic, anatomist, botanist, geologist, architect, and the list goes on and on. See, if you ask Leonardo to build a column, he would build it to the specifications, right? It could hold the load it was supposed to, it would follow all the guidelines, be able to pass everything that it needed to. But at the same time, he would build something that was equally as beautiful, that could be in a museum, even to this day. And Leonardo actually wrote a lot. He had many articles, many journals that he kept. So he actually wrote a curriculum vitae at the time when he was turning around 30. So at that point, he thought, his life was coming to an end. He was 30. His career wasn't where he wanted it. And he actually wrote a resume to the governor of Milan, who was looking for a municipal position at the time. So he wrote a 9-paragraph essay, essentially, as to who he was, what he could bring to the table. And he wrote about all the things that he thought were important that he could do. Talked about civics, architecture, engineering, his military prowess, all the different bridges he could build and waterways, cannons, and other military vehicles. In the very last line, he said, oh yes, likewise in painting, I can do everything possible. So yes, all these other things that he could do. And as a painter, yeah, I can paint as well. But see, Leonardo was also the living example of the benefits of STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, and the importance of STEAM education, combining the arts with the sciences. That's what we do at Astra. We create STEAM educational content to inspire underrepresented youth to go into the fields of STEAM. This is something that we can learn from Leonardo himself of how to remain innovative, that combination of the arts and the sciences. We can see it in his iconic symbol, the Vitruvian Man, which is a perfectly proportioned man inside a circle, inside a square. In the symbiosis of art and science, we see it in some of the most innovative products today. Think of the iPhone. Yes, an amazing piece of technology, revolutionized an industry, revolutionized the way we live. But at the same time, a beautiful aesthetic piece of art that integrates very well with the human form. Steve Jobs himself often referred to innovation was really at the cross section of engineering and art. It was there that was the epicenter of innovation. The integration of STEAM is the foundation of many great innovators, not just Leonardo. Think of Ada Lovelace. She was a daughter of a poet and a mathematician. Or Albert Einstein, famous polymath, great in physics, but also played the violin, and often stated that when he had a tough mathematical problem to solve, he would look to the arts to cause him to rejuvenate in his thought process, to be able to solve that difficult technological barrier. And this isn't surprising because we know that there's amazing benefits from the arts, understanding the arts, appreciating them, studying them, to be able to think critically, as well as other mental and physical health benefits. The other aspect that we can learn from Leonardo is that he was a lifelong learner. It was something that he practiced. This is something that we need today to stay up with technology. Long gone are the days in which an expert can just kind of rest on their laurels, whether professionally or academically. One has to continue to learn in all fields to be able to strengthen our core skills as we develop new ones. I like to call it being a jack of all trades and a master as needed. One has to be able to speak at a basic level, really on all sciences today, regardless of the field that they might be prepared to deep dive or when an expert is needed in that field. Because right now there's so much intersectionality. All the sciences, all the industries are overlapping. No longer is it just one field or one innovation in your particular industry that tends to come and displace a business. Oftentimes, it's an innovation in a completely different field that tends to do it. Think of, it's not the combustion engine which has evolved to really disrupt the automobile industry. It's the brand new electric engine. It's not a new form of public transportation itself that's been developed to disrupt taxis or other commuter services. It's been the development of satellites and ride-sharing software. Same thing in medicine, my background. It's not new types of physicians that have been developed, but it's convolutional neural networks and machine learning that's been disrupted. Another attribute that Leonardo used to remain cutting edge that we can learn from is his insatiable curiosity. He maintained a constant sense of wonder. You can see this throughout everything that Leonardo depicted, whether it was just the drawing of birds or just simply eddies in a stream. This insatiable curiosity always led him to ask questions, to seek out those who he thought knew better than himself. Leonardo always knew that if he was the smartest person in the room, he was in the wrong room. And he went out to seek those that knew more than he did. This teaches us that lesson in innovation, that we first have to be honest with our own limitations, regardless of what status of success we might have. In life, if we stop learning after a certain age, it's detrimental. But often it happens to those higher learners and higher achievers. In psychology, it's a bit of a paradox, but we tend to transition from being learners to being knowers. And this is a phenomenon that a lot of high achievers struggle with. This is because at some point we transition to being a knower and quote unquote being an expert, either by our peers or by ourselves. And this can cause us to get into this negative reinforcement cycle in which we're afraid that if we say we don't know, or we ask questions, that people may think we're imposters, or sometimes we ourselves think that we're the imposter. The other rate limiting step is something that's called the spotlight effect, which is exacerbated by social media, which is this fear that people are constantly watching you and analyzing you and ready to pounce when you make a mistake. But Leonardo never left that learning stage, and it's something that we have to do ourselves. See, Leonardo lived in a time that was a lot like our own, and this is why we have so much that we can learn from the master. His ability to combine the arts, the sciences, technology, humanities, and imagination remain the enduring recipe for resiliency, creativity, and innovation. And his relentless curiosity and experimentation outside of his comfort zone is something that we need to strive to learn ourselves and to teach to our community and our children. These are the seeds of innovation. They are the skills that will help us to transition from a life of success to a life of significance. Thank you very much.